loved dogs. For a year, she scratched his ears on my couch, posed for photos with him, signed the birthday card I taped to his $300 orthopedic bed. Then she started bringing up moving in with me. We'd need to figure out the dog situation, she kept saying. I drove 3 hours to my parents on Friday to help my dad fix some stuff around the house. Megan kissed me at the door and said, "Go, I'll check on Dexter for you." I got home Sunday around 6, and the apartment was silent. No nails clicking on the hardwood, no huge head shoving into my leg at the door. His leash was gone, his food bowl was gone, the $300 bed was gone. I called Megan, and she picked up on the second ring, sounding cheerful. "I took him to a rescue Saturday morning," she said. "Now we can finally have a real future." I asked her if she was serious. "I told them it was a joint decision," she said. I hung up and called the rescue from the parking lot. "Sir, surrenders here are final," the woman told me. "Once a dog goes to a foster home, we don't pull him back." I asked if Dexter was at a foster home. She went quiet for a second. "He was placed this morning," she said, "and the family already submitted an adoption application." I told her I was the actual owner, and I was coming in tomorrow with proof. "Bring everything you've got," she said. I sat in the director's office Monday morning with 6 years of vet records on my phone, puppy pictures, the credit card statement for the orthopedic bed, every receipt with my name on it. She scrolled for about 2 minutes. Then she looked up at me. "This is a fraudulent surrender," she said. "We're getting him back." Tuesday afternoon, they walked Dexter into the lobby, and he put his paws on my shoulders and almost knocked me onto the floor. Megan texted that week, "Can we talk? I'm sorry. I miss you." I blocked her number, and my buddy came over to help me paint the spare room and spent the afternoon teaching Dexter to bark twice at the door anytime anyone says her name. So now when somebody knocks, I just say Megan, and a 150-pound dog runs to the door and loses his mind. Dexter's still a package deal. She's the one I returned. My girlfriend, I saw dark storm clouds ahead over our whale-watching boat, but the captain turned his radio down and steered us further out to sea. Through the static, I heard the Coast Guard. "Return to shore immediately. Weather conditions are critical." It started to pour, but the captain ignored it. I've had 30 years on this water. A little rain never killed anybody, but the sky was black now, and the waves were getting stronger. A woman looked terrified. "We should go back, right?" He shook his head. "Nobody's getting a refund, so enjoy the ride." There were about a dozen of us on the boat, and he was steering us straight into the storm. People were gripping their seats. The woman stood up. "This is dangerous. We need to turn around now." The captain didn't even look back. "Sit down before you fall and sue me." A man ran to the cabinet where the life jackets were and pulled on it, but you needed a key to unlock it. "Open this. We need the jackets." The captain patted his pocket where the key was. "You don't need them. Sit down and enjoy the ride." Then a huge wave slammed us, and water flooded across the deck. I thought the boat was going to tip over any second. I couldn't even swim. The radio kept crackling. "Vessel, respond. You are in critical danger." He shut the radio off completely. People were screaming now, soaked and freezing, and the woman grabbed his arm. "Please," he shoved her off. "One more word, and I throw you overboard myself." Then the boat tilted hard to one side, and water started pouring in faster than it could drain. I knew if I didn't do something, we were all dead. So I grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall and swung it at the back of the captain's head. He dropped instantly. I dug the key out of his pocket and threw the cabinet open. "Everyone, grab a jacket." Then I hit the button to release the life raft, and it inflated off the side. People started climbing on. I ran to the boat's radio and yelled, "We're sinking! Send help, please!" Then jumped onto the raft as the current ripped us away from the boat, fast. I could barely see the boat anymore, and had no idea if he survived or not. The Coast Guard found us moments later, and said if we'd stayed a few minutes longer, none of us would have made it. But then the next morning, the captain washed up on the shore, with the radio clutched in his hand. 30 years on the water, and I didn't even see a single whale. I saw the door quietly opened, and the loner kid from my class, John, walked into our poker night with his legs shaking. But before I could ask who invited him, my friend stood up and waved him over. He pressed a drink into John's hand and told him, "Ready to bet big?" John nodded and sat down. "I've never been invited anywhere. Thanks so much, guys." He smiled. We started playing, and all my friends immediately folded to John. "You won." They They pushed the chips towards him and told him to bet bigger while cheering for him. He smiled and pushed more in while my friends refilled his glass. That's when I caught two of them flashing their cards at each other. John lost the next hand, and as I watched them do it again, my stomach dropped. They were cheating him. When John lost again, my friend clapped his shoulder. "You got this, shark. Win it back by betting more." John hesitated, but my friend instantly scoffed. "I guess you're not as cool as we thought you were." John immediately bet $50. I watched this happen for 2 hours, my hands gripping my cards so hard they crumpled. When I saw John staring at his bank account with sweat beading down his forehead, I told them to stop. They whispered back, "Bro, we're almost at a grand, relax, dude." They refilled his glass again, called him badass, and my heart sank as I watched John say, "This is the last of my college savings." He flipped his kings, but his face dropped when my friend's aces came down. He'd lost everything. He stood up, nearly in tears and wobbling. "I'm sad I lost, but I've never had this much fun. Thank you guys." He headed for the door while my friends counted his chips. I knew I couldn't let this happen, so I got up and caught him at the door. I tapped his shoulder. "I think you've still got some money left." I quickly transferred $500 of my own to his Venmo before he noticed. He sat back down, and I immediately grabbed the deck. Last hand for tonight. My friends grinned, thinking I was in on it. I shuffled the cards slowly, peeking at every card before handing it out. My friends grinned and instantly shoved everything in without blinking. "Come on, John. You all in?" John's legs shook under the table as he pushed the chips. My friends slammed their kings, but John laid 2 aces on top. His jaw dropped. I won. I won." Their faces went pale, mouthing, "How is this possible?" while John dragged the mountain of chips to his side. He walked out grinning, richer than he came in. The door I was flipping burgers at my son's 6th birthday when my neighbor grabbed the spatula out of my hand. "Step aside, kid. I've been doing this 30 years and nobody walks away from my grill hungry." He scraped all 4 patties into the trash that I dry brined overnight the way my dad taught me before he passed. Mason had that exact burger on that exact grill every birthday he's been alive, and he just turned 6. My wife leaned in close. "Babe, that's your dad's recipe. Go take it back." But making a scene would wreck the party worse than he already was. So I told her to let him knock himself out. He clapped his hands and turned to the whole backyard. "Folks, gather round. About to show you how a real cook feeds 30 people the best burger of their lives." He gave my seasoning a sniff and chucked the whole jar into the grass. "Salting before the sear. That's how amateurs kill a burger." So he cranked all 4 burners to the top and dropped a fresh stack of raw patties down. My chest went tight watching a stranger run his mouth over my dad's grill, but I kept it shut for Mason. Then he pointed the spatula at me. "Run grab the spare propane out of my garage, kid. A real cook's always thinking ahead." I told him this batch was already going, but he waved me off in front of everyone, so I walked across 2 yards holding his tank while he played host to my son's party. By the time I got back, he had the lid clamped down, guarding it, telling the parents about patience like he'd invented it. Mason tugged my leg and asked if the new guy made it the way I do. I didn't have an answer for him. The line of kids behind the grill kept getting longer, paper plates empty, and my son kept looking up at me like I'd let somebody take the one thing that was supposed to be ours. He let everybody stand there another 10 minutes, then raised both arms for quiet. "All right, this is how the big boys do it." He flung the lid open, except no smoke came out. The flame was dead. He cranked all 4 burners wide open and run his own tank bone dry, never once checking the fire underneath him the whole time he was lecturing. He grabbed the first patty and flipped it, black as a hockey puck on the side that caught the early heat, raw and cold in the middle where the grill quit on him. The whole yard went quiet. "It's fine, it's a sear," he said, and took a huge bite to prove it in front of all of them, then gagged and spit it back into his hand. A kid in the front laughed first. Then the rest of them, then the parents. So I grabbed the spatula out of his hand. "Step aside, kid. Let me show you how it's done." I then swapped in the full tank and salted 4 fresh patties before the sear, then fed my son first on his grandfather's grill. I was flipping
This isn't any...
I woke up one morning and didn't feel my wife Sandra next to me. I didn't think much, but when I went downstairs, I found a note on the kitchen table. I'm leaving to go find myself. I'll be back one day, but I don't know when. Our car wasn't in the driveway, and my stomach dropped. I immediately tried calling her, but realized I was blocked, and that's when I heard our two crying daughters behind me. Is mommy leaving? My youngest held up the note. I instantly hugged them and told them no, but Sandra was already posting pictures from Hawaii. That's when I got a notification from my bank and realized she'd also taken all our savings. I gripped my head, and that night I got a second job at a gas station to make rent. I returned in the morning with sunken eyes and found my daughters huddled over their phones, crying because their mom had blocked them too. A year passed, then two. We'd written her 100 cards, begging her to come back, but never heard a word. My daughters cried every night, but 4 years later, I met Jane. She treated my girls as her own, and when I saw on social media a picture of Sandra with her arms around another man, I decided to forget all about her. But then 8 years later, my doorbell rang. I opened it and saw her smiling at me with 2 full suitcases. I'm back. I stared in disbelief, but she just laughed. Did you miss me? I can't wait to make myself at home. But her smile instantly dropped when she saw Jane playing with our daughters. Who's this bitch? I asked Sandra if she was serious, and she gripped her head. Oh my God, I told you in my letter I'd be back, and you go find someone else. This is my house. She went to step inside, but that's when my daughters got in her way. We don't want you. Sandra froze and clenched her fists. I'm your mother, but my eldest crossed her arms. No, you stopped being our mother the day you left. Jane is our mother. You're just Sandra. I watched them throw the letter she'd left 8 years ago at her chest and felt so proud. Sandra dropped to her knees, crying, "This is so unfair. How could you do this to me?" But I just slammed the door. I woke up one morning and didn't feel my wife I was driving through a storm to pick my son up from soccer practice, flooring the accelerator, but then I saw a man stranded on the side of the highway. His car was broken down, and he had no jacket, and I remembered my dad teaching me to always show kindness. I pulled over and looked at my son's text. "It's so cold. When are you coming?" I told myself I'd only be a minute and stepped out into the rain. But when I saw the man, his face was blue. He was shivering so hard he could barely talk. "I need a spare tire," he said, pointing at his burst front tire. I gave him my jacket and the thermos of hot tea I'd packed for my son, then ran back and grabbed my spare. He tried to take the tire, but his fingers were frozen blue, and he couldn't grip it. "Can you put it on for me, please?" I couldn't believe it and looked down at my phone. My son just texted, "Please hurry, I'm gonna be sick." But I knew the man would die if I didn't help him. So I changed his tire as fast as I could, my fingers bleeding and cracking in the cold as I worked the bolts, praying my son was okay. "You're all set," I told him as I tightened the last screw and watched him climb in. I floored it the whole way to my son, and when I picked him up, he was coughing and shivering. I blasted the heat and told myself everything had worked out. But 2 weeks later, an opponent kicked my son in the head during his soccer game. I instantly sprinted onto the field and scooped him up, but he wouldn't stop twitching. I carried him through the hospital doors screaming for help, but the nurse said, "Take a seat. Someone will call you. My son is seizing. Please take a seat, sir." Then a door opened, and a man in scrubs walked out. My eyes shot open in disbelief, because it was the man I'd helped on the highway. He saw me and stopped. "You gave me your tire in that storm." He looked at my son shaking in my arms. "I'm a neurosurgeon, and that boy needs surgery now." He told the nurse to start prepping him, and they rushed him through the doors. 12 hours later, the man walked out. "He's alive. If we'd waited even another hour, your son would be dead." I started crying and ran in. My son was awake, smiling at me. The fact I'd helped a stranger is the only reason my son was alive.
These are clothes that you can buy on.
The cool older kids befriended me because I had a prosthetic leg, and during lunchtime they would make me take it off and hop around on my one good leg for their entertainment. But one day they got bored, and while I was hopping around on one leg, one of them named Jason walked over and swept my leg out from under me. I hit the ground hard and hurt my leg, and they laughed, and Jason threw my prosthetic at me, then walked away. That night I treated my good leg and taped as much metal to my prosthetic as I could. The next day, the older kids came up to me and told me to hop. I took my prosthetic off. A man from animal control. The cool older kids befriended me because I had a prosthetic. A man from animal control walked into our vet clinic with a dog that wouldn't stop growling. He set the cage down, found this dog tied to a pole on a highway. The owners abandoned it for weeks. The dog was barking aggressively at everyone, but then I saw the dog's neck. The rope cut into the neck, and the wound was infected. If we didn't treat it soon, the dog would die. My coworker laughed. "That dog isn't worth saving. I'm scheduling it to be put down tomorrow." My chest tightened. This dog gave up on humans and hated them, but I wasn't going to give give up on him. I said, no, I'm going to try to save it. To gain the dog's trust, I put my hand against the cage, but the dog bit me so hard I screamed. My co-worker said, see, it's a lost cause. It deserves to die, but I didn't want to give up. I wrapped my hand and came back an hour later. The dog growled and barked the whole time, but I came back the next morning and sat next to the cage because I still wanted him to trust me. I saw the infection was spreading. The wound was darker. I was losing time. I stared at him, and he tilted its head at me, like it was trying to figure out why I hadn't left yet, unlike all the other humans in his life. Something told me to put my hand against the cage again. My heart was pounding. I thought it would bite me, but instead the dog walked over slowly and sniffed my hand. I started crying, but when I saw his wound, I knew I didn't have any time to spare. I slowly opened the cage door, and the dog backed into the corner. I put my hand out, and it came forward and sniffed it. I gently touched its head and started petting him. I could feel it trembling with fear under my hand, but it stayed and trusted me. I started putting cream on the wound. The dog whimpered, but let me treat it. I knew the infection had gone too deep, and it was probably too late. The dog stepped out of the cage for the first time, walked over to me, and put its head in my hand. The same hand it bit 3 days ago. I held it and whispered, it's okay, you're not alone anymore. But then I felt its breathing get slower and slower. Its eyes closed. My heart broke because for the first time in his life, someone stayed, and he died feeling loved. A man from Animal...
Did I say...
My decision to disobey my parents that night might have been the only reason we're all still alive. I had found an abandoned puppy on my way home from school that day. It was all alone and shaking from the cold. I noticed it even had the same color of eyes as me. There was no possibility of me leaving it alone in that alley. The only problem would be my parents. Our last dog had just passed away, and they had said after we buried him that they weren't ready to get a new dog anytime soon. Still, I intended on showing them the dog the instant I got home. When I entered the room, they were discussing a burglary that happened at the house next door the night before. Guys, I shouted, I found this puppy on my way home from school. It was on the verge of starving. We can keep him, right? My parents looked at each other, instantly got on the same wavelength, and shot the same disapproving look back at me simultaneously. Absolutely not, they said in unison. That thing will use the bathroom all over the house, said my dad, and it will keep us up all night barking, my mom added. And worst of all, puppies like that bite, and bite hard, my dad said with finality. I don't care where you take it, but it's not staying here. He pointed out of the room as if giving me marching orders. I took the dog up to my room, telling my parents I would call some shelters in the morning. Once inside, I locked my door and cleared out the bottom drawer of my dresser. I laid out some newspaper and placed the puppy softly down. I don't care what they say, boy. This will be your new home. I looked at the clock. It was already almost 11 p.m. I crashed into my bed and fell asleep almost instantly. Little did I know, at that exact moment, someone had cut the power to our security system and was already breaking into the side door. But they weren't the only ones awake and operating inside the house. The puppy I had brought home had just come down the stairs and used the bathroom all over the kitchen floor. As soon as the puppy had trotted into the next room, the intruder had broken the lock and was taking his first steps into the kitchen. He slipped in the mess that the puppy had left and slammed to the floor, knocking off several dishes from high shelves. The commotion caused the puppy to begin barking wildly. The barking alerted my parents, who came downstairs, armed to the teeth to address the situation. They flipped on the lights to see the burglar with guns already drawn on them both. The tension was so heavy, it almost crushed everyone in the room. All of a sudden, the puppy bit hard at the burglar's ankle, causing him to drop both of his guns and fall again to the floor. My parents moved in and pinned him to the ground until the police arrived and took him away. After everyone...
The face is in the pee, bro.
Had left, I sat with my parents and looked at them both and said, you're right, the dog did use the bathroom in the house. It did bark too loud, and it did bite. And because he did, we're all still standing here together. So, can we please keep him? My parents didn't say anything. They just pulled both me and the puppy in for a warm bath. I was being interrogated as a lead suspect in a murder case when the detective slammed down a file on the table. You were the one to find the body. You called it in. You said you saw someone run out the back, but you couldn't give us a face. And you want me to believe you're innocent. I nodded slowly, and he crossed his arms. We're going to have to do a lie detector test. And if we find out you're guilty, well, just know that the death sentence is legal here. But when the examiner clipped a cold sensor to my finger and asked, did you do it? I answered, no, I did not do it. And the machine flashed red. Lie. I jolted up. That's wrong. Run it again. I didn't do it. She reset the paper, but when she asked again, she got the same answer. She folded her hands. The machine doesn't lie, ever. The detective stopped writing and closed his folder
Check
slowly.
the lie
This
machine
goes to
with
the evidence
another
team
lie
tonight.
machine.
I leaned forward until the straps bit into my arms. Please, I've got a kid at home. I would never do anything to hurt her, including murder. The examiner ignored me and reached to peel the... I was being interrogated. class team tonight. I leaned forward until the straps bit into my arms. Please, I've got a kid at home. I would never do anything to hurt her, including murder. The examiner ignored me and reached to peel the sensor off, and when we locked eyes, the color drained from my face. Wait, the person who ran out the back door, that was you. She stared at the ground. No, I don't think so. I turned to the detective. You want a real reading? Put her in that chair. The examiner's pen went still. That's not procedure. He pulled the straps off my chest and pointed at the examiner. Sit in the chair. They strapped her into her own chair, her own sensors on her skin, her hands nowhere near the dials. The detective ran the baseline and leaned in. Did you kill him? She gave the same answer I did. I didn't do it, except this time when the lie detector flashed red lie, it was telling the truth. The detective looked up at me. I guess you really are innocent. I was being interrogated. I threw a paper airplane in class, and it smacked my physics teacher in the back of the head. He snatched it off the floor and held it up. Who did that? Sorry, sir, I said, pointing across the room. I was aiming for the trash can. The class erupted in laughter, but our teacher crushed my plane in his fist. The trash can? The drag coefficient alone makes that throw physically impossible. You were never gonna make it. I took that as a challenge and stood up immediately. I can absolutely make it. He rubbed his chin in deep thought before saying, let's bet on it. You land the airplane and this whole class gets full A's. Miss, and you stand up here every morning and apologize to me. I smirked because I knew I had him, and then I reached out and shook his hand. Deal. I pulled out a fresh sheet and folded the exact plane I'd folded 1,000 times before, creasing every fold slow while the class chanted my name. I cocked my arm back and threw it straight up as fast as I could. It shot off my hand and went straight to the ceiling, but it stalled at the top of a lazy loop, and the chant died as someone groaned, "It's dropping." But the nose swung down and swooped out of the dive, and the whole room roared back to life. Halfway across, it drifted way offline. A kid yelled, "It's gonna miss," and the teacher cupped his hands. Start practicing that apology. But the heavy nose I'd creased banked it back on course, and I sighed with relief. But 10 feet from the can, it dipped low again, and it nearly scraped the desks, and I almost passed out thinking I'd lost. At the front, the teacher had already grabbed a marker and was writing "apology schedule" across the whiteboard. But the plane caught a pocket of air, leveled out, and locked dead straight on the can. The marker fell from his hand, and he screamed "no" as he bolted across the room to swat it down. But his shoe slipped mid-lunge, and he landed flat on his stomach 2 feet from the can, lifting his head to watch my plane sail over him and drop in. The class exploded out of their seats as I plucked it out and held it up in front of his face. "Sir, you're looking at the state paper airplane champion, and I was always gonna make it." He slapped the floor and called out, "Full A's? Everyone gets full A's." The chef slammed the plate down so hard sauce sprayed across my apron. "What is this garbage? Take it back. We don't serve this here." The dining room went quiet. A man at table 6 didn't even look up. He'd been writing in a notebook all night, holding his wine glass up to the light. Whoever he was, the chef hadn't noticed him yet. I took the plate back without a word. The kitchen doors hadn't stopped swinging before he started up again. 20 years I've cooked for billionaires, and you can't smear sauce straight. He grabbed a towel off the counter and threw it at my chest. I trained at the French Laundry. You're slop in an apron. The other cooks kept their heads down. He pushed back through the doors, still ranting, and a couple at table 4 set down their forks. The man at table 6 hadn't even put his pen down. The chef stopped at table 6 and turned on his charm in one breath. "How is everything tonight, sir?" The man set down his pen and looked up for the first time all night. "Your line cook's plating is the best thing I've eaten in 6 months. Your behavior is the only thing failing tonight." The chef opened his mouth and nothing came out. The man closed his notebook and stood. He pulled a press ID from his jacket and tucked it back in. "I'm the food critic for the Times. The piece runs Sunday. The headline writes itself. Sunday morning, the review hit with 1 star, and my plating got its own paragraph. 6 months later, the line at my restaurant runs down the block. His place sits dark with a for lease sign in the window. The chef slammed the plate. I was doing scuba with 80 kids from my new school when my parents and grandma pulled into the driveway. I completely froze because this secret party was my one shot at being popular in my new school, and they were home early. I jumped off the table so fast I nearly rolled my ankle. My mom walked in with my dad behind her, and their heads immediately turned to a girl throwing up in the new houseplant and a kid peeing in the hallway corner. I screamed, "Alexa, stop the music!" My dad raised a finger, and everyone went still. "The party can keep going, under one condition." I nodded so hard my neck hurt. I was ready to do anything. He pointed outside. "Grandma's in the car. Tonight, she parties. With all of you." My eyes widened because I had no idea why my parents wanted my grandma to party with a bunch of high schoolers. Before I could say anything, a chant started near the couch. "Grandma, Grandma!" I went to open the front door, and my 4'8" grandma immediately walked in wearing thick sunglasses, a crop top, and a jean skirt. "Grandma, what the—" She handed me her tin. "Hold my cookies." She shook the nearest kid's hand like she was running for mayor. "Doris, you can call me D." She pulled the aux out of the DJ kid's hand and started playing Drake. Finally, some good shit. I walked up to my mom. Mom, what is going on? She whispered. She sold her house yesterday. She'd spent 50 years in one town. Her voice went soft. With Grandpa gone, we couldn't let her first night with us be a quiet one. By midnight, she was up on my kitchen table with 80 kids screaming, D, D, instead of my name. 3 weeks of lunch alone, and now the whole school knew exactly who I was, Dee's grandson. I was doing scuba with 80 kids. I was riding in the back seat with my dad when a cop car stopped us. My chest instantly went cold because we had a huge bag of white powder under the seat, and I knew this meant Dad would be shot or taken to jail forever. I grabbed Dad's arm and screamed, "Run!" I tried to open the door, but he locked it and said, "Relax, son, it's just a stop," and rolled his window down. My legs trembled as the cop leaned in. I knew I needed to do whatever it took to keep Dad free, so I immediately yelled, "My dad didn't do anything. Take me instead." I held my hands out to be cuffed, but the cop just laughed at me. "I'm only talking to your dad." I felt sick because I remembered what only talking in mafia movies meant. I grabbed the bag of white powder from under the seat and held it up. "It was me, officer. This is mine, not my dad's." The cop adjusted his hat and immediately told my dad, "Sir, can you step out of the vehicle?" My dad looked at me with a clenched jaw and angry wide eyes, then reached for the door handle. That's when I lost it. I screamed, "No," and grabbed his shirt with tears in my eyes, but he pulled my hand away. I panicked and looked at the center console, then realized I only had one option left if I wanted to save my dad. In one swift motion, I unbuckled my seatbelt and leaped onto Dad's lap. I pushed the gear stick forward and rammed the accelerator before he could react. The car took off and Dad yelled, "What are you doing?" I replied, "Saving us," but when I swerved, I wasn't quick enough. Our car rammed into the officer's cruiser, destroying his trunk and bumper. The bag of powder exploded and covered everything. I stared ahead with my hands on the wheel, and Dad pried them off the gear stick. "Do you know what that white stuff was?" I shook my head, and he told me to taste it. My eyes widened as I licked my hand. "It's flour? It's flour, son, not anything else," my dad yelled. "Now I'm actually going to jail because of you." He stepped out, and I saw the cop pulling out handcuffs. Ran towards the officer. "Take me instead." I was riding in the back seat with my dad when a cop car stopped us. My chest instantly went cold because we had a huge bag of white powder under the seat, and I knew this meant Dad would be shot or taken to jail forever. I grabbed Dad's arm and screamed, "Run!" I tried to open the door, but he locked it and said, "Relax, son, it's just a stop," and rolled his window down. My legs trembled as the cop leaned in. I knew I needed to do whatever it took to keep Dad free, so I immediately yelled, "My dad didn't do anything." I'm walking through a street in Vietnam on holiday when I notice a little kid eating Doritos, but when I look closer, I drop to my knees because something is seriously wrong. His mom is next to him on her phone. I was 7 when my mom put a wooden staff in my hands and told me to start practicing how to fight with it. She had me breaking glass bottles in our backyard. I was being sued when the man on the stand pointed at me. "He's the reason I'm deaf. He crashed into me." But before